Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to another stream of Magic the Gathering Arena. Today is Friday, May 8th. Now, I'm not sure that the stream that happened on Wednesday went out. There was a 2 minute or so false start where I opened packs and then said I would come back. And then it seems, as far as I looked, like the hour or so video that I recorded didn't start streaming at all, and then at the last minute or so that stream the backup recording of that stream also crashed, so it will just abruptly end when it re-airs as a rerun, so that's a bit of a lost episode. I definitely wasn't feeling well. I feel fairly alright now. I feel like I probably had a 24-hour flu or something. Not the big thing as far as I can tell, although flu-like symptoms are the big thing's symptoms, so that's part of the problem. That is a slight concern, and I am trying to monitor it. But yeah, we really didn't do a lot, and I wasn't feeling particularly good, and so you really didn't miss a lot there. So, as for today, since on Wednesday we didn't do a draft, it would be nice if we could do a draft, but it's not, I think, realistic, because we have this whole pauper situation for Friday Night Magic. So, do we have any pauper decks that we could even start from? This one here, New Deck 6, seems to only really be missing these cards. So without having to make any bigger change, I could just throw in 3 cards of anything effectively and just move on from that. Of course, you have to win, and that is the problem. Don't have any more of those to play. Yeah, there's some suckiness with Magic, I would say, in the fact that it just has too many styles to be played. Like, I get it. People who have been playing Magic since Alpha want to play Magic differently. Everybody's got their own little idea. I'd even go as far as to say that there probably is some just comic book nerd actually mentality that led to the Magic having so many different styles. But also, definitely also, some of these gameplay styles were created and proposed specifically by Magic Wizards of the Coast to just sell more cards. It seems like from my perspective, getting back into Magic, it seems like Commander is something that was naturally created by fans, where obviously Historic in Arena and Pioneer were definitely created by Magic, and obviously Standard is created by Magic. Pauper, I'm not sure if this was a fan creation or something that Magic tried to throw out there specifically. And I kind of get it too. Like, kids playing Pauper makes a lot of sense. That way you don't have kids that need to spend $200+ on a single deck to try to even be compatible. I assume, and I'm not even sure I understand the rules of Pauper so much, I assume Pauper is just commons and uncommons, and you're eliminating any rares and any mythic rares. So, yeah, I get the idea. I get the sentiment. You really could not play the opposite of something like Pauper. Like, where every card had to be a mythic rare. I don't think you'd get a good game out of that. Even if all mythic rares from even alpha were available, you would not have a lot of variety in that case, and that would be extremely expensive. And I don't think anybody is willing to raise the price of playing Magic above standard or championship level standard decks. Let's see. As for the accountability section, I've been rather distracted being sick, so there's not a lot I got done. There's actually very little news on Wednesday anyways, but there's quite a bit of news because, for better or worse, Microsoft did a presentation to show off what everybody seems to be describing as cutscenes and in-game cutscenes, while consistently saying that this is in-game gameplay, which seems to have irritated a lot of people. So that presentation was not very hype building. This very well may be the first of many instances in which, without the big stage, without the big budget productions, without all the tricks, all the flashy lights, all the fancy sound effects, the background noise, the mic'd audiences, without the wraparound screens that covers the entire theater, once all of that pomp and circumstance gets taken out of a video game presentation, maybe that stops a lot of people from subconsciously getting tricked into thinking that there's a lot more being shown than there actually is. So it might very well be a great thing in the long run if we get a lot of sort of crappy announcements of new games for the next year. If everybody just steps back and shows if everybody decides to stop being overhyped for games because all the advertising tricks are falling flat or not being able to be done, that would be great. Like, now is the perfect time for the video game community, video game playing community, as varied and not much of a actual community as it is. Now is a great time for video game players, I guess is a better way to describe it, to take a step back, look at the games they've already have, get on that backlist, look at old games, play those, seek out what you really want to play, and not just be drawn to play the next Madden game, or just drawn to play the next first-person shooter, unless that really is your passion. And even then I would say, if your passion is first-person shooters, multiplayer only, evaluate yourself, I would ask, and make sure that you've tried some other games, and kind of spread your wings and try something different, try something old. Now is the best time probably in the entire life of video games for old games. Play that, and then I tap that and draw a card, and there's 6 damage. I did manage to play a couple hours, 2 maybe even 3 hours of Uru, and that put me about, I was saying, the 7-hour mark, and I've found and gone to every age / world / time frame for a world, which I still have never been able to really figure out. Myst doesn't really explain it over its entire series, whether these linking books go to different times or different worlds that happen just to look like it, whether these worlds are even real worlds to begin with. It kind of feels like there might be book creations that the linking books might be creating the worlds, or there might be a different kind of book that creates worlds, and then linking books are just the subway systems to get to those worlds. But yeah, before you do the 2 expansions, the main game of Uru is kind of small, but also if you don't know what you're doing, you're going to just wander around like crazy and wander around a very empty worlds and trying to find little hidden things to interact with, just desperately wandering around. Whereas you compare that to the Mist 1 game, you're on Mist Island, there's a puzzle within 5 feet of you at any point on Mist Island. It's nice and compact. So there's definitely some problems. There's also a lot of action things in Uru that just ruin the gameplay, as this feels like it's supposed to be for it was supposed to be an online game, an online Mist game, kind of like an MMO, so it doesn't make any sense when you're playing by yourself. And there's like one puzzle where you have to get over a rock wall, and so you're actually making a jet stream to project yourself over. You're making a jet stream to project yourself over the rock wall, and that's very action based. There was another place where there's a crack in the floor and you have to actually jump over the crack in the floor. Remembering that Myst games were originally just point and click. You would click somewhere and that's where you would go. Adding all this action and making it a first person / third person action game totally changes the feeling of it. And even when you play Abduction, you don't really do any of that at all. Abduction totally goes back to effectively a point and click element. The weirdest thing in their much later game of Abduction is that there is a laser on a minecart, and so this laser will destroy barriers, which is a little bit weird because that then gets to the level of a key, and there really was only one key in the form of the final puzzle in Myst 1. But there were combination locks in Riven for sure. And I think combination locks are more of the style of the Myst universe, where it's something you know in your head, something that proves that you're intelligent, that lets you through a room, not an ability to find something or just have something on you. But yeah, I'm playing Uru, got to a 7-hour point, and at that point I decided it's time to use the walkthrough. I'd been to every world, I'd found less than half of all of the 7 handprints that you're supposed to find. A lot of the worlds, let's see, 60 standard decks, limited to commons and basic lands, so it's not even uncommons, it's just commons. Is Pauper. Interesting. I wonder if there's a gameplay style that includes Pauper, commons and uncommons, or what that would be called. You call that middle class or something like that. That would be a funny name to give it. Yeah, I really doubt too many people could beat Uru without using walkthrough. The whole game was designed to not really be defeated and beaten and solved by one player. Maybe I'm just dumb. There is always that possibility, but I think they really did design it so that multiple multiple people would be needed. Somebody would have to think one way to solve one puzzle, and then somebody would have to think another way to solve another puzzle. Another issue that really, really hurts Uru is you start the game in this tutorial world in Nevada, in the Nevada desert. It's a giant world that doesn't really need to exist, and it really gives you the feeling that the city of Denai is actually under the Nevada desert, which I don't 100% think is true, because there is a linking book that you use to get to the city of Bevan, which is an outskirts city of the age of Denai. I've called it the city, but it's actually supposed to be a whole world. And when you look up in the sky in Bevan, you just see dark smokiness. You see a sky, though. You don't see stalactites and stalagmites. You don't see rocks. So it just seems like that issue is confused. And I will fully admit I'm not gaining any extra clarity, partially because I'm not willing to read a lot of the books. Like, there's a decent amount of books around that are just not something I'm willing to read. I really wish those were audio logs. That is one way I would very easily remaster Uru in the first spot. You could fix Uru in two really easy ways: by having every book when picked up just play an audio file, and by having the daughter of Atris or some other companion character follow you around and act as a hint system. Just have them pre-programmed in their AI to walk to points of interest and look, and after a few minutes, and then just perhaps give some different perspective on some things. Also, just having an AI character at all helps you fix the loneliness that you run into. It's a lot less acceptable nowadays than it was in the past to have a character in first-person perspective just wandering around an island. And even in that, Mist 1, that was part of the story, is that you landed on this island. You were all alone. You didn't know what you were doing. In Uru, you are magically drawn to Nevada. You solve the puzzle. Somebody even tells you what your goal is, and so you kind of know what's going on. So there's no real reason to be alone, and they did not design the game in any way that you were supposed to be alone. There were supposed to be people all around you, maybe in different instances. I really have no idea how that game would have played, because you're either going to have a thing where you see other people but they can't interact with the puzzles, or you see every other people and they can interact with the puzzles, thus ruining the... Oh man, I don't even know how to win here. Like, I've got to figure out how to actually win. So we've got to build a real deck. We gotta do something that we can actually succeed with, because this is not gonna cut it. Yeah. Maybe Uru would work if there was kind of like server resets and server rollbacks, so all the puzzles get reset to being unsolved every week or so, and people have to go and solve the same puzzles again. But really, as an online game, it would have only worked if they had just constantly added more content. Way more content than what you would get as like a quarterly expansion in something like World of Warcraft. You would just need puzzles out the wazoo coming out every day. And there's just no way that you could make a interesting puzzle that would take a week to solve when the thousands of people on your online service were all hammering at it, unless you just make it super annoying. Uru really needed some genius way to implement wait timers like you see in more modern games to stop people from doing things like that, and it just wouldn't work. And I think that's probably why, even though the Uru servers are open source now and all of that happened, there's no mod I've ever seen. Like, there's no attempts to add a ton of contents there. Even the basic general idea of taking all the puzzles from the other Myst games, I haven't seen that done. Like, and that would be the easiest thing in the world to do, is just take all of the Myst puzzles from Myst 1, take all the Myst puzzles from from Riven, from Myst 3, Myst 4, Myst 5, take all of those, program them into Uru, and then at the very least you have a 5 times bigger experience than what you would have with Uru. Because honestly, I'm not even sure, while the puzzles are different and that complicates it a little bit, I'm not even sure with 2 expansions if Uru Complete Chronicles really even is the same length of Riven. A lot of it has to do with the wandering around places element, which makes it worse. Like, it doesn't improve the game at all to allow the player to wander around. Alright. Let's see. Ikora. White. Cards. See. Let's go and get rid of these. Get rid of this. Get rid of this. I kind of wish that there was an easier solution here. Like, really, it feels like there should be a button to just figure out how to start this deck. Alright. Let's try an Ikora deck, which means 4 of these. And it's not a bad idea. And we'll see if we can even find some mutate cards. You have a vigilance card, that's probably not bad. Here's the new pacifism. And a lot of these cards are the same or very similar things. Okay. I think that's the correct cards I want. So now let's see what else we can throw in here on top of this. We need 26 more cards. It also gets really hard to criticize something like Uru. I've said that with a lot of things, but yeah, when you're sitting in silence and you really don't have anything to say and really can't say anything, that becomes weird. It's a game that very much could make the player look stupid, and very possibly I am just dumb on that matter, and I am just missing something very basic. But there is also some definite weirdness. Like, there's caves that are dark, and my only hope is that the reason they were dark is because I didn't have this device called the key, which I wanted to mention. Like, I started to say, you start the game in that Nevada desert when really you should be starting the game in a very specific area that gives you the key. There is really no reason for that tutorial section in the Nevada desert to exist other than to be a tutorial section and be a little bit smaller and less complicated than the place that you get the key. So they either needed you to find the key, spelled K-I, device, which lets you take screenshots and mute the audio, and seems to also have a directional marker ability that has yet to been implemented, as far as I can see, as I just got it. So either in the Nevada section where you have that start point, you needed to have found the key, and or you needed to have teleported from the temporary section back into the from the tutorial section back to the location where you get the key. But then that ruins, I think, their core idea of your home hub island a little bit, and they want you to go to the home hub island. So most players, I'm not even gonna try and be generous here. I think most players have a high chance of wandering around for 5+ hours in the game trying to solve puzzles without the key, not realizing that the key really is needed for some of that, and the game is not really good about telling you that you need it at all, or where to get it even if you did need it. Plus it also does a pretty terrible job about making it feel like the key is something that was from the first expansion, and it kinda isn't. It's used in the first expansion somewhat, obviously, but there is, I suppose, a fair argument to be made that the first expansion also doesn't do a good job of telling players not to play the first expansion. Alright, that's about as good as they think it's gonna get. Like, the both expansions do a bad job about telling the player to play the main game first. There's no gaining or linearity there. And I get it, if people had bought the expansions individually and they had like a new save file, then they just wanted to jump into it, that's great. But the expansions add a lot of noise, in the sense that if you had just the original version of Uru, you would have had 4 books you could have gone to, 4 linking books at the start on your Real 2 island, which is your little hub world. Seriously, did I not get any. I don't think I have any land. I don't have any land. Scoop. Like, I literally can't play anything. Why did it not warn me on that? Why? Why in the world would the game let me enter a deck that has no land? That is some grade A bull. And that explains certainly why we were running into problems. Yeah, that is some just total ridiculous. So let's just get rid of 3 more. One there is probably fine, one there is probably fine, and one there is pretty fine. So yeah, I'm hoping that the key lights up these caves in some way, that you can actually get through the caves in a fairly easy pattern. Otherwise, I kind of don't know how to get through these dark caves without just kind of wandering around in complete blackness. And turning up the brightness is not going to help. It is just complete blackness. I've managed to get through one cave, but then it just takes you to another cave. There is this, for lack of a better place, church location I found in Uru that seems to have a lot of solutions just all in one place. Again, either you would have the key that lets you take screenshots at that point, and see, I was pressing F5 to take screenshots before that point. It wasn't popping up an error or anything. Or you would have multiple players and have one player describing what they're seeing in this church in these stained glass solutions to people in other ages, which is what the Uru Live experience I imagine was supposed to be. I imagine the key either didn't exist at all. They also give you a journal. Turns out the journal does not auto-populate with anything. It's literally just something you click on and then you start typing away in it so you can make notes. These aren't bad features. These would be great features if they were in Myst 1, but they just kind of replace what people were doing on pen and paper in the real world, and but they're not bad features. They're just kind of poorly implemented, and they kind of fail to supplement against the weird, more action-based, more general people numbers-based puzzles. Like one of the puzzles, I found what seems to be a prison that has 6 panels that have weight on them, and almost certainly in Uru Live 6 people would have had to stand on these platforms, or some people would have had to stand on the platforms where other people wouldn't have to stand on platforms to open the prison doors. To make that doable as a single player game, they've opted to have the world have a bunch of bones and rocks in that area, which is fine. But then the problem is you see these counter levers through the prison doors that seem to indicate the pattern to open the prison doors, and it doesn't seem like it works. So either I am doing something totally wrong, or the counter levers that are being shown have nothing whatsoever to do with the combination, and I am supposed to just brute force 6 panels. Is it really 6 even? No, it's 7. So 2 to the power of 7, that's 128 possible different combinations if I'm doing the math, remembering the math right. That's a lot of brute forcing to have to do. Target artifact or enchantment, scry. Let's go and just cycle. Can't play that yet. So yeah, that doesn't sound very fair or fun. There was also a point where you were supposed to jump on a platform. You could literally see the handprints, and the handprints are the things you're supposed to find. You're supposed to find 7 handprints in each world, at least in the main game of Uru, and click on them. One of them's on a platform. You have to jump on the platform. I go to jump on the platform. I clip through the floor and fall basically to my death, although in actuality it really just teleports you back to your hub Real 2 island. There's a whole bunch of jargon in the game that doesn't get said out loud, so it becomes a problem. Yeah, in fact, with the exception of a couple talking characters at the beginning of the game, I don't know if there's any spoken dialogue in the game at all after that point. There probably is. There probably is another cutscene or two at the very end of each section, the main game and then the 2 expansions. But you're alone in silence for the rest of it. In all fairness, I did know what I was signing up for with Uru, and I have played it, I think, to completion before. But it is kind of the worst of the Myst games, just because it is so far out from what Myst was. It also is a great example of the early ambitions of Cyan that failed. It took them, it really messed them up for a decade making Uru, and their new game Firmament might go the way of Uru. One hopes it doesn't, but it very well might be a game that tries to be too actiony, that tries to feel too different from a Cyan game. Maybe with Abduction already changing up the feel of what Cyan games are now. Now the new Cyan with a new generation of programmers in charge are trying to do something different anyways. That might not be as big of an issue. But we're getting closer to being able to actually play a game here and win. Yeah, and I wanted to do a draft today, and it's just not gonna happen. I guarantee you this Friday Night Magic Pauper just trying to get 2 victories here will be a nightmare. And I'm, for the week, far behind the number of victories you would want to have gotten. Like, there's definitely been days when I've only gotten a few victories. Part of that is Magic's own interface's fault. Like, it gets network troubles. And I know we're all having network troubles right now. But when it locks you into this situation where you can't really do anything, you're because it's just running up a clock and it won't give up. If I'm just playing with my mouse, which is usually how I'm playing, and my keyboard is across the room, trying to hit Control-Alt-Delete to get around that situation, it's not really worth it. Particularly if one's sick or just in pain and doesn't want to hurt their back by standing up and walking across the room for a stupid card game. Yeah. Well, as far as Uru, I've talked a lot about it. I've probably talked about way more than I should have about it. We're kind of on the full path of we're kind of on the full path of just using a walkthrough. Like, I don't think I'll be doing anything else other than using a walkthrough. I could attack, but can I activate this? No. Yeah. I'll probably be in full walkthrough mode and just finish Uru. I need to do some scheduling, I need to do some uploading, I need to do a lot of things, and I'm just forever constantly falling further and further behind. So let's start going through the news. There was nothing I even remember from Wednesday, so as far as that lost footage goes, like, I don't think there was anything of big news or any game that came out that you're likely to miss. Maybe we can rebuild a deck here and see if we can put in some more low-level characters instead of high-level characters. Just like these 4, for instance. I can't read that. And let's do that. And then let's see, we'll get rid of that one, and then 2 of that, and then 1 of those, and then down to that, and then down to that. And yeah, see if that improves anything. So let's start going through the news. There is still a risk, I suppose, that I would just have a sudden loss of energy. That seems to be the case when you're sick, or when I'm sick at least, is that I'll just all of a sudden have a drop in like blood sugar and just be like, oh, all my energy is drained. Also, took a over-the-counter sleeping pill. I accidentally took 2, and that seemed to have done something weird to my sleeping patterns. Either that was the cause, or just my back in general being the cause. And so now I'm having a lot of dreams, which I usually don't remember having dreams at all. And and so I'm having this situation where it feels like I'm having a dream, then I'm waking up and rolling over for a second, falling back asleep, having a dream, waking up, rolling over, falling back asleep. It's rather annoying because it feels like you're sleeping for potentially 15, 20 hours. But more than likely what you're doing is having a 10-minute dream at most, and then waking up, rolling over, and sleeping for another 10 minutes. But yeah, that's annoying. And certainly not a desirable outcome from a sleeping pill. The idea would be to sleep all the way through the night without waking up, not encourage the opposite. But it wouldn't be the first time something has worked the opposite way it says it was supposed to work for me. Moving on, TechCraft has an article, a Fortnite Party Royale Kirby cameo is an awfully strange crossover. So I guess they're showing this as if this is supposed to be Kirby. Here. I don't know if that is just that somebody is drawing something, or if Kirby really is going to show up in Fortnite Party Royale, which isn't the Party Royale the pacifist section anyways, where you're not going to be fighting in Fortnite at all. Yeah. Looking at this, it seems like this is probably just in the video some accidental inclusion or some hint, secret like Easter egg. I have some questions as far as what I'd really want to believe that Kirby is coming to Fortnite in anything other than the Switch version. I totally would believe if Kirby shows up in the Switch version, and only the Switch version. I guess it would then kind of just boil down to, is Nintendo potentially doing something really, really different? I don't know why they'd throw Kirby out there. It's not like they really care too much about Kirby, but you would almost think that they would throw out Samus Aran from Metroid first, because they really don't care about that. But yeah, we might be seeing a lot more Nintendo things in the Fortnite party mode, and maybe in Fortnite in general. Fortnite is effectively printing money right now, and I wouldn't be surprised if Nintendo wants to get in on that action. Don't want that one, or that one. Gamma Sutra has an article. Animal Crossing New Horizons has sold 11.77 million copies in under 2 weeks. So Animal Crossing doing very well. Although there is kind of a plethora of complaints about how Animal Crossing is designed for multiple players and multiple people who are sharing Switches, and just an inability to let people have their own separate islands. And I think 2 weeks in now, we are going to hit the point where either you are a hardcore fan of You're either going to be a hardcore fan of Animal Crossing and play it kind of religiously, or you're going to be a fair weather fan and you're going to be fairly done with Animal Crossing, even though people still have reasons to have that extra time. Like, if this whole pandemic thing hadn't happened, I would suspect you're going to have at best 40% of people who bought Animal Crossing before the summer still playing Animal Crossing by the end of the summer. Alright, well, do I want to attack now? Or do I want to wait? Because this guy could block one guy. And this guy could block one guy. Which means probably this and this would get through. So let's just not attack. Gamma Sutra has an article here. Nintendo praises Switch momentum as lifetime sales eclipse 55 million units. I even saw a picture on Reddit showing that some Switches have even made it back to the shelves. So the run on Switches seems to have slightly lowered. Yeah, that didn't help. I guess I should have attacked. But we're much closer to actually getting victory here. And I don't think I know how to make a small tweak to this to improve. Pauper sucks. It really does. There's just not enough variety there. Unless Pauper is all common cards, not just standard common cards, which, okay, even if that was the case, it still kind of sucks on Magic Arena compared to playing that in a store, because Magic Arena only has the standard cards, a small selection of non-standard cards, and historic cards. But yeah, this isn't particularly fun, and it's not well balanced as far as I'm feeling, and it kind of is insulting just to every second thinking the only reason you're playing this is either because they're telling you you have to play it to get a reward on Magic Arena, or because you're so broke that you can't build even a decent deck with uncommons. Which honestly, I think if you just spent, let's go generous. Let's say if you just spent $100 on booster packs of the most recent expansion and just got commons and uncommons somehow, which is not even possible to my understanding, you still would probably be able to build a better deck than a Pauper deck. At least something that does something more interesting. And it's not like commons do nothing. I could almost see an argument where you had a faceless game, where there are just no activated abilities. It is just your toughness and your power, and that's it. And any activated abilities on the face of the cards are just ignored completely. That would be an easy way to learn the basics of Magic without getting too into the complications of Magic. That's something I think would work better than playing Pauper. If Pauper is intended to be for new players, which almost certainly it has to be. I doubt anybody who's even been playing for a few months would want to play Pauper very often, maybe once in a while. just for to change things up. But fairly obviously, you can kind of tell I'm hating it. Moving on, we have a game on Steam that's a bunch of Asian letters and called Rebirth. This is looking like a Chinese RPG game. It is wider screen, not full 16:9. It's early access, English is not included. It's selling for $18.74. So we had a brief second there where it felt like the it felt like the cheap Chinese games weren't getting listed as often, but seems like we'll probably still see a few of those. I got linked to an article here from Pocket Gamer. You can lead a resistance against the Nazis through the darkest of times, now out for iOS and Android. I think we've seen this game already, so I don't want to get to the point where I feel like I'm hyping it. This guy has lifelink, so if I don't put an end to him, which I should have done, he's gonna win more and more life. But see, he's going for this mutate maneuver. And that lets me now start piling on the damage, but I don't know if I can pile on the damage enough to make up for everything he's done. Next we have a game on Steam here called Dark Light, which is already mixed. I did come across a game that I saw that was on my following list. I cannot name it. It was probably a pretty old game that was added to the following list, in the sense that it was probably added almost 6 months ago. We are getting to the point where following a list cleanup starts to make a little bit more sense. So I just removed it. This game, Dark Light, looks like it is too dark of a game for its own good. Looks like it's a shooter, platformer, Metroidvania game. It's early access. It's $13.99. It's English, Chinese, Japanese, and then Chinese again. Yeah. See, the game doesn't even load after the title screen. Is one negative review. I don't see anything here that really makes me want to put this on the follow list, and that this is being particularly cruel too, in all fairness, like, because I have been fairly lenient. Oh man, I'm gonna lose. Well, might as well do damage while we can. I've been fairly lenient on games, and probably in the past I would have said put this on the follow list. There's nothing really wrong with this UI. There's nothing really wrong with a lot of the imagery other than it's dark. But I feel like if it comes out in early access and you've already got 17 people giving it a mixed review, you've shot yourself in the foot. So I'm just gonna ignore it, and if it becomes a lost gem, forgotten gem, I guess so be it. Next we have a game on Steam called a bunch of Asian characters in Banner of the Maid, which is rated very positively. It is a turn-based strategy, seemingly kind of in a French Revolution style of outfits, I'd guess, with the little anime inspired art style. So there might be something here. feels like this might have been a cell phone game that was ported to PC, but it's widescreen. Doesn't look too bad. Seems to have a love for cleavage in a lot of screenshots. Set in the French Revolution, yeah. So $16.99, a free DLC, and then a $4.99 DLC. It's English, then full audio in Chinese. So this is made by a Chinese company, I would guess by the language, but they did their job well, and this doesn't look terrible. Other than the fact that it is a strategy placement turn-based RPG game, which means it could be fairly short and fairly boring, but I'll put it on the follow list. Like, it's not a bad idea to try and highlight the good games coming out of China when there are good games that come out of China. Like, I would much prefer to lift up the Chinese video game market than to have to constantly just poop all over it. But yeah, you kinda never know. Where you can, where the next big thing is going to come from. So I probably should have played this first, because I have 2 Charmed Strays, plus it also has lifelink. So yeah, that was really dumb mistake on my part. The only reason to have played this first is if you were afraid of this guy being able to kill this guy with a spell, which is a fair concern, but probably not enough to justify playing the way I did. We may actually get a victory here, now that we're 8 points up. Let's see, next we have a game on Steam called No Weight Hero, which looks like it's a card-based battling game that seems to work with a positioning system, which definitely feels a little bit complicated. Also, it doesn't seem like it's turn-based at all, so you're playing the cards, I think, in real time, from what I can tell. So it does kind of feel like you're doing 3 different things. Well, it says turn-based combat. That didn't feel like turn-based combat from what I was saying. Let's see, boss. Yeah. Well, this is $9.99 and it's English and Japanese. I'll put this on the fall list because that definitely is a different style of gameplay that we don't see a lot of. I don't know if it's a good style of gameplay per se. There is definitely an argument that could be made that overly complicating things and not just sticking with a basic 1 or 2 gameplay mechanics is a mistake. This is an instant, so let's go and attack and see if this guy will block that guy, which I thought he would. There we go. Next we have a game on Steam called End of War 1945, which looks like an asset flip first person shooter. Looks like a PlayStation 2 game. Like, I don't even know if you really, I guess I still would call it an asset flip game. But yeah, I'm not seeing anything here of interest. It's early access, it's $14.99, it's English only. These military games in particular, rather uninteresting. Okay, yeah, we'll just let that happen. And win. Finally got a victory. I hope I'm a realistic example when playing these of just how much time it can take. When I was playing Hearthstone, I always had that feeling that maybe I just really was bad at Hearthstone and I wasn't showing what an average player's experience would be, even though I was getting close to 50% win ratios. So I kind of feel like the same issue is here too, where an average player is going to potentially have to play 4 games or more to get 2 victories in a game like this, and when you're limiting them to building a specialized deck and spending that extra effort to figure out what kind of deck will actually win, and then you're limiting them to using much fewer cards than what you normally would have, it just becomes extra burdenous. And this doesn't feel like you're playing against bots, which also becomes an issue for sure, because if I was playing against bots, I feel like the bots would just automatically concede a little bit easier. Next we have a game on Steam called Data Dream, which looks like it is kind of a surreal line runner game, or just a combination of a bunch of surreal imagery. It's a little too crazy looking, frankly, and it's not really highlighting what the game actually is. Or seems like you're running and attacking things and being attacked by things, but then at a certain point you're also in the ship, and yeah, seems like your attacks are mostly based around running and kind of ground slamming. Let's not block. Data Dream is $17.99 discounted, and it's English full audio. So they're saying it's like Abduction. These comparisons still particularly bad. So yeah, I don't think Data Dream makes it to the fall list. Next we have a game on Steam called Tonight We Riot. There was a game that was clearly like a political troll game that I skipped over, something called Libtard something or other. Like it was just so obvious that it wasn't anything of interest that I didn't even open it. This is probably another game like that. Seems like the graphics look pretty bad, and it seems like you are just playing some kind of infinite shooter, side scroll shooter game against. They're calling it a beat 'em up. Maybe that is the best way to describe it. I'm losing words as I'm trying to figure out the right way to describe it. Let's see, enchant creature can't attack. Attack here and attack here. And we'll decide if he wants to sacrifice a couple of people to kill my guys. The pixel graphics, the overworld art here, the emphasis on the overworld map makes it feel like they're this is something sort of like Castle Crashers, but even worse. It's $14.99, which is way too expensive. They are comparing it to Castle Crashers, and it has a bunch of languages on it, and it has 20 weapons, which is, I would say, barely enough. Alright. Start attacking with these. So yeah. I don't think tonight Riot deserves to be on the fall list. And apparently I did open this. So Libtard the Satire game is a political troll message, almost certainly. Early access, $4.99, English only. Yeah, I won't go into speculation that this is being made by some foreign country to make fun of the United States, because there's no proof to that effect, but that is always a possibility. Or it could just be actual political speech from actual United States citizens, or political speech from non-United States citizens. I guess that's also an option. Let's see. Can we win here? Was that the right move with this first strike? Gamatsu has an article here. A role-playing billiards game called Lianhai Billiards Club has been announced for PC. It's coming out summer 2021. Seems like you're playing pool, but then you kind of have what looks like some kind of bad Korean animation characters. Apparently it's Chinese characters. This is better than this is. This person doesn't even have a face that's showing. But I don't really know. Yeah, I can see her eyes and her nose and her mouth just barely. That the shading and the detail work here is pretty bad. I don't know the point of that, like trying to combine what is effectively a visual novel element to a billiards game. You almost for certain know that the billiards game is not going to be that good, and I doubt too many people that want to play virtual billiards are overlapping in the category of people that want to play visual novels. I could see an interesting visual novel series around some of those sports like billiards or bowling or things like that that don't get done very often in anime stories, because I don't think billiards or bowling are particularly popular in Japan and haven't been for quite a while. Bowling at one time was very popular all around the world, but that was quite a few years ago. Probably about three decades, I would guess, 3 or 4. But much like how Princess 9, the anime that is about baseball, really doesn't have anything to do too much about baseball, or more recently the ice skating anime really doesn't have as much to do about the ice skating part of it. These stories are designed around the idea of introducing characters that have interesting goals. They're not designed around the idea of people being particularly interested in playing the games or seeing the games played. So yeah, I don't think that makes a lot of sense. Moving on, we have a game on Steam called Dragon Banner, which looks like it's an attempt at being kind of like a Minecraft clone. maybe with some tower defense elements. They're saying it's an RPG, and I guess at the core of it, Minecraft is an RPG. Seems like you're building up a base and fighting enemies. It's $16.99 English full audio. Yep, I really don't see anything here special. There is a lot, I think, to be said about the graphics of Minecraft, and even though they haven't majorly improved or changed, that there's definitely a nice experience and a consistent experience with what you're looking at always in Minecraft, and it's become very familiar. So people like the way Minecraft things look, and even when you look at like Roblox or other games that are similar to Minecraft, they feel different. And it's not until you get to something like Fortnite that you I would say Fortnite looks rather different while still having some building mechanics like Minecraft, although Fortnite also is very not focused on being a Minecraft-like. At least it wasn't until the peaceful mode. We'll have to wait and see if the peaceful mode in Fortnite really doesn't just boil down to playing being similar to playing Minecraft in peaceful mode. The only one thing I would say that Fortnite has yet to do is just have the equivalent of creepers, have some AI enemies run around. And I wouldn't be surprised if some mode comes out that adds that. Well, none of these look like they were new cards. Let's see how many of those actually filled out a collection. This was new. This was the fourth one. This was the second one of that. This was the first one of that. Interesting. This was new, and this was new. So we got some new cards. A mythic rare card, which is nothing to shake a stick at. But also, these cards seem to be kind of all over the place as far as what they are from. Some of them are Theros Beyond Death, some of them are Throne of Iderain, some of them are Ikora. So that might be part of the issue, certainly with my lack of success, is that we're going to play the green test to get the daily quest done, is that there simply may be not enough rares and mythic rares from Ikora and Throne of Eldraine to buff up a deck, and just trying to build a deck with Ikora cards alone may not be good enough. Moving on, Kimetsu has Ninjala delayed to June 24th, no longer coming out May 27th. Also, I had heard Ninjala is going to be a little bit more of a battle pass free-to-play game than, or at least you can pay to win type game, than I had hoped it to be. So that kind of sucks. But we'll see. We'll wait to give final judgment until Ninjala actually comes out, which might be a while because the Tokyo Game Show 2020 physical event is canceled due to the pandemic. A digital event is now planned. More information will be announced starting late May. So this could be a major affecting part as far as Japanese games coming out this year in total. This year and kind of next half of next year, if not longer. We're not anywhere close to the point where we should just assume that anything next year is going to be canceled, but there's as the months go on, there's a possibility of that also. I had talked about in a previous stream, my fear is that Japanese companies may just decide not to release their Japanese games at all if they can't really sell them in their own company, in their own country, because it has been a fairly consistent attitude of Japanese companies to really only care about domestic sales. They always have to partner up, or at least they feel the need that they have to partner up. It's not like China. Japanese companies could definitely make their own publishing companies and distribution companies in Europe and the United States and in North America and all of that. They don't have to partner up with a distributor, but they don't want to do that because then they'd have to have foreigners on their payroll, and they don't want that. I hate to use the word xenophobic, but Japanese are economically pretty xenophobic. They really only care about the bottom line in their own country. They really only care about the sales in their own country. They really love to gouge the people in Japan and charge them hundreds of dollars for a game. So like some games probably do sell for $120 where they're selling for $60 everywhere else. So if all of a sudden the pandemic stops them from having the Tokyo Game Show, which is the biggest show for Japanese games, and it is the place where all Japanese companies show off their games first and foremost, my fear is that they will just decide to not release the games until they can release them in Japan. Also, if the country of Japan is being ravaged by a pandemic and people are just not buying the games, they're just not capable of buying the games, then you also run into that same issue where they may very well go, well, we could sell this in Japan, but nobody can afford to buy it, or nobody can go out to the shops to buy it, or we can't get it on the shelves, or so they may just say no. They may just put everything in a holding pattern for a year or longer, which would hurt the video game industry quite a bit. Like, if you lose Japanese games, you lose a lot of Asian players. You lose, I think, half of video game players worldwide anyways. Never underestimate how many Asians are out there, or how many people are out there playing visual novels. That alone, like, that is a huge amount. And it does potentially create this scenario where the video game industry might just get ceded to Western game developers, and then you have people like EA and Activision Blizzard and 2K all making just military first-person shooters, which decreases the appeal and decreases the variety. One thing Japanese games can always be described as being different, and different is always appreciated in a world where there's a lot of clones of other kinds of games. But right now, we don't have any real evidence that that's going to happen. If anything, we have equal evidence that they're still going ahead with just digital events. And it very well may be a case that Japanese companies are even better at adapting to digital events than Western companies, because their internet in Japan is probably a lot better, and presentations and digital presentations have been going on for a while in Japan anyways. They haven't been particularly good, but they've been existing. So yeah, this green test is not going well. We've cast one green spell. Are creature spells not spells? I would thought creatures were spells. This could take forever if creatures aren't spells. Because it's not like this instant spell here is marked as a spell. So this should be a spell too. Theoretically, in the idea of magic, you are a planeswalker, and you are casting spells to summon creatures, magical creatures that one assumes have no life or existence outside of being summoned, and thus really don't create any moral dilemmas in the fact that they seem to be killed when you're done with it. If anything, I guess the Pokemon card game is the cruelest one, because unless somewhere in the instructions of the Pokemon card game that the assumption is that those are real Pokemon that you're making pass out and faint. I guess if you just look too deep though into any of it, it'll drive you crazy. Can't do that yet. No attack in turn. Moving on, TechRaptor has an article. Blood Rage Digital Edition brings the fight to Steam. So, a game called Blood Rage, which I haven't ever heard of, is being hyped up and advertised by TechRaptor. It doesn't... It seems almost like a real-time strategy game. Like, it looks a little weird. And I guess Digital Edition probably implies that there's a board game called Blood Rage. And it seems like you're playing with like card-based gameplay, and then there's just some animations on top of it. And the animations do look fairly nice. But honestly, I also feel like the board games at this point have burnt me out. I've tried to play several of them and not found them particularly interesting, and I think I've covered enough of the ones that are frankly even worth mentioning. Jeez, cannot do anything. Not yet, at least. The new era, it seems, of putting out demos seems to continue, in that we have a game called One Dreamer Prologue, which looks like a pixel graphics, free-to-play, point-and-click adventure, for lack of a better term. And that's what I guess it would be. It is a demo. It says it's English full audio. It has 9 achievements. It's weird that demos can have achievements. And the actual game, One Dreamer, is going to be available in 2020. Yep. I am still sticking with my decision, though, that to not put these demos, these prologue games, on in the fall list. It's a little early for this to be a reaction to the pandemic, but I kind of come to think of it, I kind of wonder if the reason why we're seeing a lot of demos for games is because people don't want to release the actual game, so they're delaying the game and then putting out demos in their stead. So they're trying to have their cake and eat it too, which is an interesting idea, certainly. And it might really work. It might make a whole new era of people releasing demos and finding more value in releasing demos. Honestly, I don't think demos need to exist anymore. Like, And frankly, I don't think demos needed to exist for the most part ever, since like shareware days. It made sense when a game had to be mailed off and there was just this long delay. But now the fact that any service whatsoever could, I'm not saying that they all do, but could easily just have a 2-hour refund policy, no questions asked. I feel like that you're just in a better position at that point to simply just have your game out, and then if people really don't like it, they have 2 hours to get that refund. And that system forces a lot of game developers into a situation where they have to have a demo whether they want it or not. There's not been a case where anybody has successfully been able to opt out of the Steam 2-hour no questions asked refund policy. That has just been the law of the land, and it has worked fairly well. If only I could destroy this, it'd be nice. But I could mutate onto this one still if I can get some more land, and I've got like 3 of these growth cycles, so I could attack, but I would need trample first. That's what I'd want, so I want to get that on the field, so I can't really do anything. I could attack with that, but that's not the right move either. Moving on, Gamasutra has an article. Riot wants to curb toxicity in Valorant without putting the burden on targeted players, which I assume means they want to enact some penalty on toxic players without making the targeted players actually report them, which seems like it's probably just at a certain point going to be speech policing by the third party in the conversation. Honestly, just reading this title and going no deeper, because I'm not going to waste the time to read any further, because I'm not going to play Valorant anyways, and I don't play most online games, so it doesn't really matter to me. There's something there I definitely don't agree with. And I think most people don't agree with that concept of police speeching between two people. If somebody is such a wimp that they are getting called names or harassed in a video game, and they can't go into the report button and report them, or then no action should be taken to help them, frankly. At a certain point, you just have to let the little baby birds fly or fall out of the sky and die. Like, you just can't helicopter parent or try and help all of these people that much. It's just not realistic, and it's silly to even try. On the other issue, you can't guarantee that these aren't two agreeable parties who are joking amongst themselves using coarse language that the third party doesn't agree with. It is very often the case that people are just joking around, having private in-jokes or private in-conversations, and a third party has no reason whatsoever to step in and go, now you boys behave, now you kids behave, don't use those naughty words, don't say those mean things. That kills the fun. And on a bigger note, it seems very much like all of these game developers are just obsessed about curbing the quote-unquote toxicity in video games that seems to not really have increased any in decades, and seems, if anything, to still just be at the same amount it always has been, which is to say a fine amount, an average amount, an amount you would run into just in your day-to-day life dealing with people. Even if it was a high amount, it very likely is a situation like what happens in a lot of junior high schools and later grades in elementary schools, where the kids are going through hormonal changes and they're aggressive because of that, and the teachers are aggressive because they're going through menopause or menopause half the time themselves. So so there is kind of, in a lot of schools, this just generational, year after year level of aggression, because nobody wants to be there, nobody wants to listen to anybody, nobody wants to do anything. But there's really no way to really fix that, like, not until you address major issues that you can't really address, because a school effectively is a place where a person has to go to learn, and if somebody doesn't want to go, they're not going to be happy about it. A school effectively is a place that has, where kids going through hormonal changes have to be around other kids. Until we can invent brain implants that just teach kids, there's no solution there. I don't think there's a solution there to whatever level of toxicity, if there is any real level of toxicity. I would say there probably is some small level of it in video games. But I think a lot of these game developers are wasting their time and they're wasting their energy. And it's not like the games are getting better because of it. Like, there's yet to been any story even tried to be put out that says a game has been majorly improved due to the draconian, authoritarian moderation of the chat. Like, no, it's been the exact opposite story. One of the most beloved multiplayer games was Halo, the Halo series. What is Halo most known for, other than being a good first-person shooter? It's most known for people teabagging each other. If Halo came out today, there would almost certainly be major articles talking about how that game is toxic and how it shouldn't be allowed to exist. But yeah, thank goodness Halo came out earlier. It could also be that a lot of these game companies are just paying lip service to these ideas and they're not really doing much of anything. I kind of wish that was true, but it doesn't really feel like that is true. It does feel like there's definitely people who are just in that California groupthink mentality that are going to too many GDC conferences, talking amongst too many of their SJW mainstream video game journalist friends, and getting these agendas shoved in their heads so much that that's all they can talk about. But yeah, that really just boils down to my opinion, I suppose. As somebody who doesn't play multiplayer games, I would really prefer to hear from somebody who does just very consistently play multiplayer games and see how they run into it. Because I don't even watch streamers, honestly, that play multiplayer games too much. Except for people playing Minecraft, and people playing with people on Minecraft seem to be completely 100% cool. Like I've not seen any major instances of griefers on Minecraft servers that are run by big people. At least I imagine regular people that play Minecraft that let regular random people in sometimes do run into griefing. Oh, did I literally just lose? I literally just lost. That was dumb. How did this get tapped? I guess maybe it was tapped already. Moving on, TechRaptor has an article. Pokemon Go Pokecoin overhaul is in testing. Gyms won't be the center of Pokecoin in the proposed overhaul. I don't even know what Pokecoins are. I guess they're a currency in Pokemon Go, but having never played it, I would assume that they are probably the premium currency in Pokemon Go, and that they're going to try and make the game a little bit less expensive. 8 more green spells that need to be played. They need to fix their verbiage there. It needs to not say spells, it needs to say instant or sorcery cards, instant or sorcery cards, because as I understand it, as the game itself told me, creatures were spells, but maybe in general gameplay of Magic, creatures are not referred to as spells, and I'm just confused. But that does definitely make me want to re-roll that daily quest going forward. It is a bit of a catch-22. I have complained about Magic often saying just play this many cards of this color and then not emphasizing any new mechanics, for instance like cycling. It would make a lot of sense to have a daily quest that says play 5 cycling cards, because that's a brand new Ikra concept. But then I'm also complaining that instant and sorceries, which are old style of cards, are being a requirement, or acting as a requirement. Let's see. Can't play that yet. Go ahead and ruin this strategy. Next we have a game on Steam called Alone Journey, which looks like it's a platformer. Looks kind of like a student project. It's pretty empty as far as enemies and has a very basic life meter, and is slightly better than a standard looking pixel graphic MS Paint game, but only barely better. $6.59 discounted, English only. There's nothing here to impress. Alright. Go and put that on the field. I guess we're just waiting for a trample, because that would be the thing that would help us. TechRaptor has an article here. The Walking Dead Saints and Sinners hasn't launched in all regions yet. I believe, again, this is the VR game that was coming out for the PlayStation VR, not the other Walking Dead game that they were suing for. So, yep. Neither one of the 2 most recent Walking Dead games have been specifically well designed as far as trying to get out and catch people's attention. And I think at this point The Walking Dead as a series is kind of done. Like, I don't think that there's anything more to be said about it. The TV series is still going as far as I understand it, but the comic book series is done and the fandom around it is done. So I guess Chris Hardwick is going to have to find a new thing to do, which he is running that game show, The Wall, and he's probably talking about several other shows, but I guess TNT itself would have to be the one that would really do a good job of bringing out something new. Up to one blocks it. Well, do I want to cycle? Or do we want to attack? This is gonna do 6 damage. I feel like I should cycle. Come on, game, do something. Well, while it decides what it wants to do, Rebel Inc. Escalation Campaign update debuts all new gameplay. Rebel Inc. being the sequel from the, well, not the sequel, but the next game from the developer of Plague Inc. And you can see from these graphics that there's a little bit more visually there than Plague Inc. Plague Inc. I don't know if there's really much more you can do with it without drastically changing the interface, which is exactly what they're talking about doing, is trying to improve the interface, at least for cell phones. They kind of would have to make a Plague Inc. 2 and just like double the gameplay mechanics or do something very different. Okay. TechRaptor has an article. Cannibal cuisine lets you cook with spices, traditional ingredients, and magic. Although, by the name, it almost seems like you'd be cooking with humans too. This looks more like a mobile game than anything of any real interest. And it feels like you're kind of playing up the weirdness of exotic cannibals that don't really exist in large numbers in Africa. But I can't really say I'm too upset by that. That has long since been a cliche, and it really is just a cliche fiction in the way that a lot of the British Empire brought back a bunch of fictional stories exoticizing the Africa and the Middle East and China, and they've just become culturally relevant at this point. So I can't say I hate those as concepts, as long as you just know that they're not real and they are not going to be effective propaganda against most people. Like if anybody legitimately thinks that there's a bunch of, that all of Africa is a bunch of people, a bunch of cannibals with bones in their noses, they're really, really dumb. Moving on, TechRaptor has an article. Steam revamps and improves traffic reports for developers, which I guess will help developers that like to obsess over those things, and will almost certainly in some way incentivize people to do even more crazy things to try and increase their number of views that they get. In a weird way, much like YouTubers, I guess video game developers are out there trying to get as many views in front of their store pages as possible, in the hopes that that will bring up sales. One more and then I can start playing the regular deck, and maybe even try to play a little ranked. It's not like we've gotten very high in ranked. More than even Hearthstone, by far, Magic takes so much of your time doing side stuff that you can't just play ranked and get it done. Part of that definitely is the fact that I could have built a druid deck in Hearthstone that wins fairly well and not had to change that druid deck for a year or two. Where in Magic, you kind of need to build a new red deck or blue deck or any color deck every time there's a new expansion for it to even maintain playability, which definitely makes it a annoying experience, a more arduous experience trying to just have decks that would work as far as getting daily quests done and playing ranked. Because if I was trying to play ranked right now with this green test deck, I would fall down in rank quite a bit. Moving on, Gamasutra has an article. Sales up at Nintendo due to significant growth across the entire Switch family, which that's not surprising. What will be surprising, I think, is over the course of the next 12 months, what is going to be the main system sellers for the Switch, particularly now that either everybody has a Switch that wants a Switch, or nobody can get a new Switch if they wanted a Switch because of the pandemic. Like, I don't know if there's any major software coming out this year for the Switch, and so there was a bit of a complaint of a slow lineup when the Switch initially launched. Then it eventually got Odyssey and Zelda, and now it has the other Zelda game, and it's got a lot of third-party games, so now it does have a decent lineup, but it may now become stagnant again. And if this was a normal time, having two different periods in your console's life when the launches become stagnant would almost certainly be a system killer. But that may not be the case this time. Moving on, TechRaptor has an article. Killer Queen Arcade Fire Map controversy addressed by the developers. I have no idea what this is. I assume this is Killer Queen, which is related to that game Killer Queen Black. Maybe they made an arcade thing. Custom arcade mods shut down. The Killer Queen Arcade Fire Map controversy has been addressed by the developer on Reddit, highlighting it. Here's a bit of background. Killer Queen is an arcade platformer game with a theme of bees and hives. It makes for pretty intense platformers. I didn't know it was in arcades. And it seems to like quite a few people are really enjoying this game. However, some modders took things to the next level by tinkering with the machine and creating a custom map. See, can we mutate on top of this guy? I don't think we can. Sorry, I went quiet there. However, some mods took things to the next level by tinkering with the machine and creating a custom map. The developers ultimately didn't like this and had it shut down, as explained. Here, there's a quote. I think a lot of people don't understand that our business model is different. We often find ourselves in uncharted territory. Unlike many game companies, our customers are not necessarily our players. But that is definitely not a statement you want to say out loud and be heard saying. The end user is not the customer, which means that their customer is the publisher or somebody else. And then the question is, who is the real customer in that case? Is this a creature? This is a creature. Interesting. See how this is all just like scrubbed out? There should be a better system than that. Okay. I don't know if those mutates were really worth doing there, but that seems like that worked fairly well. So yeah, they I guess shut down that. There is another story of Nintendo sending out massive DMCA like cease and desist letter style barrage on the PC port of Mario 64. So what does that really tell you? Anything? I mean, it seemed fairly obvious that was what was going to happen, and it doesn't really seem like that means that Nintendo is even 1 inch closer to ever porting games like Mario 64 to PC. They just are doing their standard copyright protection, and I wouldn't even in this case call it a overreach of protecting your copyright, since the entire game is being ported and released for free, and Mario 64 really doesn't, a PC version in particular of Mario 64 really doesn't fall into the category of what I would even stretch to call abandonware, considering there's been so many re-releases of that game fairly recently. Like, it hasn't been 4 or 5 years since some Mario 64 something has been released somewhere. So yeah, the odds were pretty much zero that the PC port of Mario 64 was going to be allowed to stay up, even if it did inspire Nintendo to make their own port and sell it. It very well may have done that. I guess if you really thought anything was going to affect their decisions that they've probably long since already made. The idea that that port is out there and that maybe other ports will come out, that might slightly change their opinion if they're just constantly having to spend money on lawyers to take down PC ports of old Nintendo games or even new Nintendo games. They might eventually just go, look, it's not worth it for us to deny the fans what they want, which is obviously some PC ports of these games, and it might just be easier to port them to computers, port them to PC anyways. But a lot of that is going to have to do with the attitude of the people in charge of Nintendo, and it would be weird if you convinced somebody to do something by irritating them and just constantly doing something that they don't want to do. Not saying that strategy won't work, it's just not the ideal strategy that you want to take if you can avoid it. Although there are definitely some people that only respond to certain situations certain ways, and maybe just berating Nintendo with PC ports of their games is the only way to get them to move to PC. Nintendo would be a very interesting company if they did start putting their games on PC and then they started making something that was a Switch-like device that ran an i86 processor and was effectively a computer. They probably would do it better than the Steam Link did. Let's see. Okay. Are we ready to attack? I don't think we need to yet. Moving on, we have a game on Steam called WC, as in Water Closet. This is an infinite runner where you're trying to run to the toilet and you have to, I suppose, go through the right door, or maybe you get to choose your next run. It's weird that there's like this blood stain on the wall. That seems weird. And as an infinite runner, it's $1.99. It's English only. It's 13 achievements. It's probably an achievement game. Looks like it might have some secrets to surprise people with. The game might change somewhat as you play it further, as kind of a joke game. But I think I've played enough of these joke games at this point in my career, and I don't really feel like this is one that's gonna do anything big and different. Alright, let's do this. I may have lost here. We'll see what happens. In the meantime, we have a game on Steam called Infinite Beyond the Mind, which has some interesting drawing. This would look good if this was like an 80s PC game, but it's kind of rough in 2020. It looks like it is a beat 'em up game, kind of arcade in style. Yeah, looks like it's a little bit too just pixel graphic-y to be interesting. $7.99, English and a bunch of other languages. You know what, I'll be a little generous here. The price is a little too high, but not that high. I'll see if people like this for some reason, and then come back and decide. And here we go. Now we just need to activate this. And we have victory.